Hey friends, today we're making brown sugar Pop-tarts. First you're going to need some cinnamon, melted butter, vanilla, some molasses. This is my favorite, I use it every Christmas. You're also going to need half a cup, some pie crust. I'm just using ready-made pie crust. You can definitely make your own. Light brown sugar and some flour. Alright, so you want to take a tablespoon of flour. Next, you want to take your light brown sugar. We're going to need about a half a cup of light brown sugar. Now, make sure you pack the brown sugar really well. That's really in that cup, and that you pack it down. Next, you're going to add your cinnamon. I'm adding about a tablespoon of cinnamon. Okay, so now you want to add your molasses. It's about a tablespoon and a half of molasses. I'm just eyeballing it here. This is really going to bring out the flavor in your brown sugar Pop-tarts, brown sugar cinnamon Pop-tarts. Okay, now you just want to mix it all together. You want to make sure you combine it really well. It should start to form like a sand-like consistency. You just want to make sure that all the sugar and flour and molasses is incorporated well. It does start to get a little sticky, so you want to make sure that you scrape your fork or whatever utensil you're using. I like using a fork. It's easier to make sure all of it is mixed well together. It does get sticky, so make sure you're scraping the sides, scraping your fork. You want to get all that brown sugar and molasses mixed together well. Next, you're going to want to clean out your workspace because you're going to need to lay down some parchment paper so it doesn't stick to your counter, and roll out your pie crust. I like using parchment paper. Now, if you're making your own pie crust, you can definitely skip this part and just put some flour down. That works too. But since I'm using the pre-made crust, I'm definitely going to lay down some parchment paper. You gently want to unroll your pie crust. Make sure you don't split it or crack it in any seams. I'm just going to grab my rolling pin because I feel like I can roll this out a little bit better. I like my crust a little thin. I also like to just get all the wrinkles out of my pie crust. Again, if you make this homemade, you don't need to do this step. You just roll out your crust and start cutting. But because it is a pre-made dough, I do need to roll it out a bit more and make sure it's at the thickness that I prefer. I'm just going to grab my pizza cutter. I really like using my pizza cutter when it comes to cutting pie crust. It makes it really easy, smooth to cut. It's just easier for me to use, especially when you want to make sure your lines are straight and that it's as uniformed as it can be. Obviously, this is a circle crust, so it's probably not going to be as perfect as I'd like it to be, but it works pretty well, and honestly, my kids don't care if they look perfect, as long as they taste good. Once I cut them all down, I cut across, and any excess to make kind of a square / rectangle type of shape. I just take the excess and I put it aside and roll it out when I'm gonna make some more. Next, you're just gonna separate your squares. You want to make sure you have an even number, so that way you have a top and a bottom square. Next, you're gonna grab a basting brush and you're gonna take that melted butter and you want to baste all of the squares or rectangles. You want to make sure you get the entire surface from corner to corner and in the middle. Okay, so you want to take your filling that you made earlier, and we're going to get ready to put them in the middle of our dough. I'm going to use a 1/2 teaspoon. Mine are a little bit smaller, so a 1/2 teaspoon would work great. Sorry, that's my toddlers. But yeah, so you want to do about a 1/2 teaspoon if they're on the smaller side. And you want to make sure you press them down in the middle. You don't want it like pile up too high. You want it to be pressed down and in the center. Now this is my 1/2 teaspoon. It's working pretty well for my smaller squares. If yours is bigger, you're gonna want to go up to maybe a full teaspoon, because some of mine they're not all perfect, so I'm adding a little bit or taking a little bit away. Whatever fits your size square works for you. You're gonna want to take the side of the crust that doesn't have any filling in it and lay it on top. Seal in your sides. You want to make sure there isn't any open seams when you're doing this. You want to grab a fork and poke some holes in the middle. This allows for the steam to get out of the Pop-tart so it doesn't explode all over your oven baking sheet. When you're done doing your holes, you want to take the fork and crimp your edges. This is to make sure it's really sealed in on all sides. I like to put a little bit of pressure on the top of the fork when I do mine. I'm lifting these up because I'm going to place them on a baking sheet that is covered with parchment paper to the side. But these are generally what they're going to look like. I make mine a little smaller for my kids. Remember that dough that we had left over? I'm just going to roll it out so that I can make some more Pop-tarts with the leftover filling. Sorry, that's my 4-year-old. I have 4 kids, so it's never a dull moment, even when I'm trying to bake them some treats. Now that the dough is at a consistency that I like, I'm going to take my pizza cutter and just cut off the sides, make it as clean looking as I can. This one's coming out a little big, but that's fine. I can just give this one to my husband. Again, the best thing about making these Pop-tarts at home is you can literally put anything you want in them. You can make them however big you want. I have smaller kids, so I like to make the smaller sizes, but I leave a few bigger ones out when I have the extra dough for my husband or for myself later on. With the second pie crust, I'm just gonna repeat the steps that I did before. Another reason why I really like making these Pop-tarts is because I know exactly what I'm putting in them. So it makes me feel better knowing I can add or subtract exactly how much sugar is going into these Pop-tarts. Also, they're really easy to make. I made this while some of my kids were napping, which is awesome because I have a 1-year-old, and so when he's running around, it's not very easy to get things done. Which is why I like doing these, because they're quick. I can freeze them and pop them in the oven later, and it's just a nice little treat to have either for breakfast or after dinner dessert. Okay, these are the Pop-tarts all filled and crimped, ready to bake. Now before you bake them, you do want to place them into your freezer. I'm placing mine into my freezer for about 10 minutes. Then you want to bake for 20-25 minutes. Go ahead, try it.
Okay.
What do you think? You like it?
Mm-hmm.
Should I make it again?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
This time. Maybe you taste it. Hi guys. Make sure you subscribe. Give this video a big thumbs up. And make sure you hit that bell and notifications. Bye.
Go ahead, you say it too.